The following program is sponsored. The opinions and statements made by the hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the views of WBOB or its parent company, the Chesapeake Portsmouth Broadcasting Corporation.
WBOB AM 600 The Answer is proud to present Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Help is on the air with Toula Wooten, your source to go for resources and information to help you in this rewarding but sometimes challenging role. To participate in today's show, call 904-222-TALK. That's 904-222-8255. Now here's Toula.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Toula's Tips for Caregivers on this beautiful fall day. My name is Toula Wooten, and I've been doing this radio show for caregivers in Northeast Florida, and now with digital means everywhere. So welcome. I've been doing this radio show for over 6 years now, every Saturday morning, coming to caregivers to help you, the caregiver of a family member or a loved one, or perhaps it's a friend that you're taking care of. Find resources to help you in this sometimes very challenging role, and I always hope to provide some encouragement and support because I, too, know the challenges of caring for a loved one. I have been a caregiver for my dear parents now for about the past 5 years, and it has had its ups and downs. We're in a pretty steady situation right now, but I've been pretty transparent with my listening audience over the years. So if you want to call in today and ask even any questions about that, I encourage you to. Let me say at the top of the show that this show today is pre-recorded for the convenience of everybody today, including my guests. But I do encourage you to call in today. The topic today is so important. If you call in, the producer will take down your name and your information, and I'll be happy to call you back during the week. Again, because this information is so important. And that number again is 904-222-8255. So let me introduce my two guests today. They are my friends and my colleagues of many, many years. They work with me at Community Hospice. Their names are Jamie Buller and Bonnie Bedenbaugh. Jamie and Bonnie work with our advanced care planning department. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you guys are here today. I know we had to do some scrambling to make this work today. So, again, thank you for your time.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
This busy day. You know, we're going to talk today about advanced care planning and what that is, and we're going to talk a little bit about our Honoring Choices document and how that came about. And then we're going to talk about a series that we have coming up that I'm really excited to share with my listening audience. But let's start with Jamie. Why do most people not have the conversation? Why do people not want to put an advanced care document in place?
Well, I think one of the main reasons is we always think that nothing bad will happen to us. And we have to realize that anything could happen at any given time that's unexpected. Even if it's not a serious illness, it could be a serious accident. I love to share the story of someone who's been terribly supportive of advanced care planning and Honoring Choices Florida, Barbara Ottavani Jones. She is a St. Johns County resident, and she and her husband were young, and he was a professional volleyball player down in St. Augustine. Very vibrant, strong. She describes him as someone who just loved life. And he had a brain aneurysm in his 30s, just something that we don't expect to happen to us. So she describes how her life became very complicated in trying to make decisions for his health care because he had not put his wishes in writing. And she and his parents had different views of what they each believed he would want, and that caused a lot of conflict in the family. It caused conflict in the healthcare environment, and ultimately became very expensive for her, and she believes that he lived for a long time in a way he didn't want to live. So I think just having that mindset of thinking something bad won't happen to us. And we also hear from people that they think it's negative, that it is only about withholding or withdrawing care, and that's not the case.
Right.
We tell people every day that whatever your wishes are, the most important thing to do is to talk to your family about them and document them.
so that they can be followed if you were ever in a position where you couldn't speak for yourself. And I think that's a really good, very important point that you made, is that it is about maybe the care you do want.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize that.
Exactly.
I appreciate you elaborating on that. And that story is such a tragic story because that woman did not have to go through all that pain and suffering at a time when she was grieving.
Exactly.
Losing her husband.
Right.
It made it so much more complicated for her. So, it's not an easy conversation, is it, Bonnie?
It is not. No one really wants to talk about death, and it's very depressing, and, people just don't really want to sit down and talk about it. As my husband says, it's not dinner table conversation, and we're trying to change that.
I think those of us who work at Community Hospice, we're so accustomed and so comfortable with having these conversations all the time, but you're right, most people aren't, and they don't want to have these conversations, yet we all know it's the inevitable. And to be prepared for this is so much better than to be unprepared. We prepare for everything else in our lives. We prepare for our kids' college education. We prepare for our own retirement, hopefully someday. But none of us want to think about this part. And to do this for our loved ones, I've always said, is such a gift of love for them, so that they aren't in the horrible situation like you just described, trying to decide with other family members and perhaps argue about what the loved one would have wanted.
Exactly. Well, and there is a lot of research nationally, internationally actually, that shows one question that can't be answered is, did I do the right thing? And when wishes are documented and when individuals have talked to their families about what they want, it's very well demonstrated that families experience far less grief, depression, and sadness after a death because they know that they honored their loved one's wishes and that they did do the right thing.
They can have peace in their hearts, knowing that they did what their loved ones wanted. That's a really very important point. So let's talk about our wonderful document, Honoring Choices Florida, because we used to use something different, and, I'd love for you to tell us how it came about.
Oh, that's an awesome question. Honoring Choices Florida is actually a program. The document is the end result of, we hope, a conversation that people have with their family and their health providers. But locally in Northeast Florida, six in fact, of the hospitals and health systems worked with Community Hospice. We convened that group. We collaborated on an advanced care planning approach for our community. We developed processes with those 6 hospitals. We implemented pilot programs, and since then, each of those hospitals are now spreading internally this work. And we at Community Hospice are working with various community partners to implement advanced care planning processes within their systems. The document is a piece of the conversation. In fact, we like to say the conversation is as important as the document because the document is the end result. But we encourage individuals to talk to family and health providers, reflect on their experiences, explore any religious, personal, or cultural beliefs and values that they have that could influence their wishes, and then ultimately put those wishes in writing.
But it starts with having that difficult conversation with your loved one about what you may or may not want should you ever be in that position. We're going to talk a little bit more about the document itself and how to use it when we come back. You're listening to Toula's Tips for Caregivers on AM 600 and FM 100.3. We'll be right back.
Toula's Tips for Caregivers is proudly sponsored by Age Well Institute at Baptist Health, by the AARP, by Elmcroft Assisted Living and Memory Care, and by Claim Medic.
Hi, this is Toula, and I'm here to talk to you about Baptist's new Age Well Institute. Are you caring for a loved one who's 65 or older? Are you a boomer like myself who's caring for a parent? And perhaps your parent has been experiencing some decline in their overall health. Let me highly recommend to you the Baptist Age Well Institute. They have the only real geriatrician here in Northeast Florida who is able to look at the whole person. Their comprehensive approach includes a nurse, a doctor, a social worker, a pharmacist, a dietitian. They have their own physical therapy there. They can work with folks with memory disorders. My goal is to help you, the caregiver, find an organization that can care for your loved one who's 65 or older. I take my own parents there, and I highly recommend the Age Well Institute at Baptist. Please give them a call at 904-202-4243. Again, that's 904-202-4243. You'll be so glad you did.
Are you burdened with a loved one's medical bills and confused about who and how much to pay? Are there medical claims that have been denied? When you work with Claim Medic, they review your bills for accuracy every month and deal directly with your insurance company to make sure you receive every benefit that you pay for and never pay a bill that you don't owe. At Claim Medic, they offer free audits of up to 3 years of past medical bills to identify any past billing errors and recover overpayments you may have made. And their monthly bill review service will ensure that future bills are accurate before you pay. With Claim Medic as your personal medical claims specialist, you can focus on what matters most, the health and comfort of your loved one, and rest easy knowing that their medical bills are managed by experts who care. Ready to start? Call 888-988-2985 to speak with a specialist or visit ClaimMedic.com. That's 888-988-2985. With Claim Medic on your side, you'll never pay a medical bill you don't owe. Have you read the new book, Love Stories and Timeless Tips yet? It's by our own Toula Wooten with Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Toula is a caregiver too, as well as an expert on caregiving. You can get it in paperback or on Kindle at Amazon.com. The book is filled with touching stories of caregivers taking care of their loved ones. Each chapter has helpful ideas that we all can use. I love that Toula included a Toula's tip with each story. Her message to caregivers is clear. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of your loved one. This is a beautiful book for all caregivers to read, whether you're a part-time, full-time, or long-distance caregiver, or someone receiving care. You should get the book today. Just go to Amazon.com. Search for Love Stories and Timeless Tips by Toula Wooten.
George, I got the job. Thanks, I'm so excited. They hired me on the spot right after the interview. It was that book I bought from Amazon, From the Interview to the Paycheck by Fred Haley. The book really taught me something. It helped me to think about what the boss wants. Then it helped me with answers that show that I can do the job. I can tell they were impressed when I introduced myself. I just followed the simple outline from the Interview to the Paycheck book, and I know I won the job with my first 90 days plan the book recommended. They said no one else had ever been so prepared. You should get the book. It's on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle. It's worth it if you want to get hired. Just search for From the Interview to the Paycheck by Fred Haley. Do it now.
And now let's return to Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Once again, here's Toula.
Welcome back, everyone. If you've just joined me, again, this show is pre-recorded today, but I do encourage you to call in because this topic is of such importance. We all need to have an advanced care plan in place and have conversations with our loved ones. My guests today are Jamie Bullard, Director of Advanced Care Planning at Community Hospice, and Bonnie Bedenbaugh, who's the manager at Advanced Care Planning. They are my colleagues and friends. And, you know, we have these discussions all the time about the importance of having the conversation, first of all, with your loved one about what you do or wouldn't want in the situation where you couldn't speak for yourself. And then the importance of putting those wishes in writing to avoid problems, should that ever happen. So we've been talking about the Honoring Choices program, and I like, Jamie, that you said it's really not just a document, it is a program. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know it's more than just a piece of paper we hand people.
Well, the premise is that the conversation is the important aspect of advanced care planning. So it's difficult for individuals to know how to have that conversation with their family and health providers. We have facilitators who have completed a certified training program. Some of it's done online, and then an all-day classroom training experience in which they have the opportunity to practice the skills. But that facilitator is the person who is best qualified to guide that discussion with an individual and whoever they want to bring to that meeting. Facilitators are available in those hospital settings as well as in the community. We have some who are volunteers for us at Community Hospice. Many of our employees have been trained as facilitators, and we have several of our employees who have been trained as instructors, and they're the ones who teach this class. But the facilitator is really the person who can help guide that discussion. The discussion isn't something that is loose. It's very structured so that it's consistent and the individual and their family members are getting the same message. We find that it's just very helpful because individuals don't know where to start.
Right. I think a facilitator kicking off the discussion who obviously has knowledge about this is a really great place to go. Bonnie, I know you do a lot of this and you train a lot of facilitators. Can you give me perhaps just a typical example of a discussion maybe you've been involved with, family members, and the direction that it went and how perhaps it did or didn't go the way you thought it would?
I can. I actually did a facilitation yesterday with a couple that felt that it was very important and it really did not want to include their children who they were identifying in the document. And we sat down and I talked with them about, why they had chosen not to include talking with their children and furthermore explained how important it is. So often we find in healthcare that people have identified a healthcare surrogate without ever even letting them know.
Ooh.
And we make that call at these horrible, very stressful times, in times of an emergency, and find that they have no clue that they're identified as a healthcare surrogate and have no clue of what type of care that their family member or loved one would want in these situations. So the conversation never took place. So I explained this to them, and they really understood, and I feel very comfortable that, once I left, they were going to sit down with their family. I certainly offered to come back out and discuss everything with them and include them in this very important conversation.
Were they inclined to appoint any of their children at all as healthcare surrogates?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
Yes, they did. They did.
Okay,
yes.
There's the point. You don't want to just say on paper, this is who I appoint, and then when something tragic happens, they get the call.
Right.
It's kind of like having someone be referred to hospice and not telling them ahead of time.
Right.
There's nothing really more horrible than that. The patient, the family all have to have these discussions together.
Right. Well, and we find, too, that a lot of people have documents such as a living will and a surrogate completed in their attorney's office.
Right.
Very, adequate documents, no problem. However, when they leave the attorney's office, they put it in the safe deposit box. And so on a Friday night or a weekend, the hospital can't access any of the information. No one knows who the legal decision maker is, and there's an order in Florida law about how that decision maker is chosen, and it might not be the person that the individual wanted to make decisions for them. So in addition to the conversation, we encourage them to make copies of these documents and give copies to everyone, their hospital, their doctors, all their family members, anyone who would be at the bedside involved in care, even if they're not the decision maker, because you want all of the children to support the one who's making decisions.
Right. And we know from working in this field for years that doesn't always happen.
No.
As a matter of fact, you've given me and Doug Schilling at one of our educators has also given me a statistic before on the number of arguments that happen among families, the high percentage of it is, and I don't remember that, but I know it's extremely high, and that's the worst time for family members to be having that. Bonnie, let's talk about who you might appoint to be your healthcare surrogate, because, as a married couple, you typically think, okay, that should be my spouse. But maybe that's not always the case. What things would you want to think about if you're thinking about, and you should be, who you want to appoint to make your decisions for you in the event you couldn't?
So during our facilitation process, we really talk with the people seeking our assistance about who would be the best person to choose. And in our document, you have a choice, the availability of choosing a primary person and a secondary and then a third. And really, you want to choose someone that is able to follow your wishes, that is agreeable to do it, that can handle stressful situations, that they can make these difficult decisions in stressful situations, and really get that buy-in with that person, and really have this hard discussion with them about each scenario and what the choices could be.
You're right. It's not an easy discussion to have, but you have to pick the person, again, that you think really will follow through on your wishes. Absolutely. Because it is such an emotionally charged situation, as those of us who've worked in healthcare for so long know.
Well, and Toula, you mentioned that it might not necessarily be the spouse. I know in the acute care setting in the hospitals, it's not unusual that the spouse is the decision maker by default.
Right.
And yet they can't make those difficult decisions that need to be made, or they don't believe and support the wishes of the patient, and so they go against what the patient has even documented. So in addition to making sure that they're capable and able, we want to make sure that the individual knows to ask the question, will you support and honor my wishes even if you disagree?
That's a very, very important question. What happens in those scenarios? Jamie, I know you've been in hospital settings for a long, long time. When a spouse, for instance, does not want to honor the wishes that their spouse, their wife or husband put down, what happens in those situations?
Well, all of the local hospitals have an ethics committee, and the process should be that when a document isn't being honored, that it go to the ethics committee and there be a discussion with that spouse and the ethics committee. I can't speak to whether that actually happens all of the time. And so another reason it's just so important to make sure you pick the right person, you have that conversation, and put your wishes in writing.
And make sure you get a copy of that document to everybody who needs one. That's so important. And a lot of people don't think about taking it to the hospital that they normally go to. If you have a hospital, listeners, that is your hospital of choice when you need admission, you can go to the medical records department of that hospital and say, this is my advanced care document. This is my Honoring Choices Florida living will. Please put this in my chart. And they can electronically do that now, right?
Yes. As long as that person has a record there.
Right.
As long as they have been a patient, yes. If they've not been a patient, they have no record, so there's nothing to attach the document to. But as long as they have a record, there is a place to put the document.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a record, then they need to have that document with them when they go to the hospital the first time so that it gets in.
Yeah. And, people don't think about that, again, in an emergency situation, to pick up this document on the way to the hospital.
Right,
and we're even looking at ways to make it more portable.
We are. And right now, the best that we have is on the back cover of the Honoring Choices Florida document is a wallet card. And so once someone completes a document, they can fill out that wallet card, keep it on them in their wallet, purse. We even tell people in training to tell individuals to put a copy of the document in their glove compartment in the car.
Makes sense.
Hugh Hewitt, Laura Ingram, Dennis Prager, The Savage Nation, Mark Levin, WBOB, AM 600. The Answer.
With SRN News, I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Donald Trump campaigns in Colorado and Arizona today while Hillary Clinton hosts a canvass kickoff in Daytona Beach, Florida. Clinton resumes campaigning under the cloud of new FBI inquiry into her emails. The FBI says it's looking into whether there were classified messages on a device belonging to the estranged husband of Clinton aide Huma Abedin. The National Transportation Safety Board will conduct an investigation into a fire that broke out on board an American Airlines jetliner. Pilots were forced to abort takeoff and evacuate the passengers when the blaze erupted on Friday at Chicago's O'Hare Airport. 21 people were hurt. Authorities say a FedEx plane was did catch fire while landing at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport last night. The pilots told authorities they believe the left landing gear collapsed on the runway. Both pilots escaped without injury. This is SRN News.
How do you feel about Barack Obama as your next Supreme Court justice? This is Cindy Graves, chairman of the local Republican Party, and if the idea of a Justice Obama scares you, I urge you to get out and early vote today. Vote to save your Second Amendment rights. Vote to repeal Obamacare. Vote to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. It's up to you to mount your own personal campaign to make America great again, and now is the time. Gather 5 friends and pledge to get out and early vote today. Remember, the only poll that actually matters is your vote at the polls. There are 18 voting sites in Jacksonville open every day. Visit DuvalGOP.com or call us at 904-396-4233. Let's save this country for our children and grandchildren. Paid for by the Duval County Republican Party, not endorsed by any candidate or candidate committee.
I'm Joseph Collins, CEO of Punch TV Studios. God has given me a vision to make movies and television shows about the lives of people that ordinarily would never be told. Join me by becoming a part owner, a stockholder in Punch TV Studios for only $1 per share. Together, you and I could make it possible for unique personal testimonies to be told in a way that America has never seen before. Join me as we open our IPO, our initial stock offering to the community for only $1 per share. We have a limited amount of stock for a limited amount of time, so call now at 310-419-5914. That's 310-419-5914, or visit us online at punchtvstudios.com.
Watch the all-new Punch TV in Jacksonville at channel 18.2 and get your stock now.
Hi, this is Dennis Prager. You and I will be having lunch together every weekday. We'll talk about what's going on in the world, and most important, we will talk about everything in life. Happiness, male-female relations, the meaning of life, is there a God? Plus, what is happening in the news. My motto is, I prefer clarity to agreement. The Dennis Prager Show, weekdays at noon.
WBOB, The Answer.
And now let's return to Toula's tips for caregivers. Once again, here's Toula.
Welcome back, everyone. My guests today, Jamie Buller and Bonnie Bedenbaugh from the Advanced Care Planning Department at Community Hospice. We are talking about the Honoring Choices Florida document, how important it is to have conversations with your loved ones about the care you would want and perhaps some of the care you wouldn't want in the event that you couldn't speak for yourself. We're also going to elaborate on the document a little bit more, Jamie, and then I'd like to talk about our Being Mortal series that's coming up. So tell me about this document, why it's different, why it's better. Why did we do this?
Okay. Well, when Community Hospice decided to initiate one advanced care planning program for the community, we engaged the support and collaboration with all of the local hospitals and developed a committee with representation from those 6 hospitals and health systems. Part of what we wanted to do was to develop one document that each of the hospitals would support and would use and encourage their patients to complete after having a conversation. So we looked at current documents in the community that everyone was using, as well as researching documents that was used nationwide. We had to be careful to make sure that a document we created would meet all of Florida statutes. So we pulled all of that together and developed a draft. That draft went to the legal departments of all of the hospitals. And it was interesting because Mayo actually sent the draft up to Rochester, and Shands at the time sent the document down to Gainesville, so that all of the legal departments had the opportunity to review it, make sure that it met Florida statutes. We also had a lot of input from physicians because current documents in the community were not specific enough in doctors' opinions to tell them what care the patient wanted or didn't want. They were just too generic. So the document we created is now on its third revision and getting ready to undergo another revision, more for structure versus content. But we do watch the Florida law, and anytime there's a change in statute, like there was last October, we make revisions to the document to ensure that it maintains that statutory regulation requirements. So the document has been through a lot of scrutiny, and it has proven to hold up with having the conversation with families, with physicians, and healthcare teams.
So now if someone in Northeast Florida does go to a hospital and does not have one, is this the document they're going to be given to fill out?
That's an it depends answer.
Okay. All right.
The document, when you look at it, is long because it has a lot of specific medical information in it. If a patient is in a hospital and they need something done quickly because they're getting ready to undergo open heart surgery, this is not the document for them.
Right.
They need that one-page living will form and healthcare surrogate designation form, and that's what the hospitals will give them. But if they want general information about advanced care planning and they want a document that they can use to reflect on their wishes, this is the document they will get.
That's really, really good to know because it is accepted and used now in all of our major hospital systems in Northeast Florida. So for any of my listeners out there who are listening and they don't have a living will or advanced care plan, how do they get this?
Okay. The easiest way to get one is to go to either our website, which is honoringchoicesfl.com, and just put in a contact us, and we'll send it to them, or to call us at 904-407-7024 and leave a message. Let us know name, address, and how many copies they want. It is on our website also under the Resources tab, so it can be printed. It's not quite as pretty when it's printed. So any of those three ways.
And there'll be no charge.
No charge. It's free. And there's also no charge for a facilitative conversation. What we find sometimes happens is individuals will request a copy of the document and they get it and they think, we would like to sit down with someone and talk about this. So they then contact us back and ask for an appointment with a facilitator. That's also free.
I think that's such a wonderful component of this program that we offer, and that's something we weren't doing before.
Right.
And that just makes such a huge difference. It's a trained professional like the two of you, or a trained volunteer, who understands the importance of this, understands the document, and the different types of scenarios that one might experience to help walk you through. Because again, as we've said, it's a hard conversation to have, but I encourage all of you out there. I've said this so many, many times. If you don't have your own living will, you are putting not just yourself, but your loved ones in not such a good position. Should they ever have to make decisions for you, you're making it more difficult for them. Give them this gift of love and complete your document. Jamie, what are the statistics? I know y'all did some studies right as we were starting this on the percentage of people in our area that have.
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. I should have thought to bring that up earlier. We did. When we convened the committee of all the hospitals, each of those hospital representatives did a chart review of medical records, and they pulled charts of patients who died in the hospitals from October to December of 2013. And all of the hospitals together looked for merely the presence of some kind of an advanced care planning document on the chart, and just under 14% of those records had any kind of an advanced care plan in the record. That's lower than the national average. The national average is 20 to 25%. So we knew we had an opportunity to help people put wishes in writing and get it on medical records so family and caregivers and healthcare teams would know what they wanted.
And make life better for everyone involved in it. I think that's so startling that our percentage was so low.
Right.
So I commend you guys and, of course, Community Hospice for taking on this initiative. And I know it's going to be an ongoing one forever and ever. So let's talk about this new series that we're getting ready to launch. Most of us have read, who are sitting in this room, the book by Dr. Gawande called Being Mortal, and or seen the series. Why don't you talk to me just a little bit about that book? You know, what's different about Dr. Gawande and what the premise that he sets forth in that book, and why are we doing this?
He is such a remarkable doctor. I just have so much admiration for him and his honesty about conversations he has had with patients, stuff he has left out of these conversations with patients, and how difficult it is, even for our medical professionals, to have that honest conversation with patients and families when they are faced with a life-limiting illness. And so he has written this book about these honest conversations and shedding a light of the responsibility not only that physicians have, but we as patients have, as being our own advocates and asking the questions and being honest so we can give quality of life at the end of our days, not necessarily quantity.
Right.
And so the Being Mortal series is a documentary based on his book. And we are doing free screenings all next week. We have 5 dates that we'll be doing these screenings at our different partners and community partners throughout Jacksonville at different times. So I'm hoping that by talking about this and starting this conversation and have people come and have that available to them to talk with the panel that we'll have at some of the venues, that they can start this conversation and really make it normal and change our culture.
So will we be airing the documentary that was on Frontline or something like it?
It is the documentary that was on Frontline, done by PBS, and it's about an hour long, just very eye-opening and really enlightening.
I read the book, and I have to agree with you that one of the first things that really struck me was his honesty about talking about how he practiced as a physician and how he made mistakes and overtreated, sometimes for what he considered the right reasons, sometimes maybe he just didn't think through it enough,
right?
And had regrets. And so where he came to, particularly when things started happening with his own father, which we'll talk about, was he decided that we all have to, as a patient, as a person, define what quality of life means to us.
Right.
And what is it we can and can't do.
Right.
And that's where we need to have some serious conversations. Boy, this break came too fast. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the series, what people can expect when they come, and give the dates and times and how to register for them. You're listening to Toula's Tips for Caregivers on AM 600 and FM 100.3. We'll be right back.
Toula's Tips for Caregivers is proudly sponsored by Agewell Institute at Baptist Health, by the AARP, by Elmcroft Assisted Living and Memory Care, and by Claim Medic.
Hi, everyone. This is Toula again, and I'm here to tell you about the Agewell Institute at Baptist Health. They're located in the San Marco area. I've been taking my own parents there for about 2 years now. Dr. Lance, the geriatrician on staff, has done remarkable things for both my parents and for me, the caregiver. They have great information, advice, and resources to help me. Dr. Lance and her team of social workers, dietitians, nurses, therapists, and the pharmacist have been so instrumental in helping me keep my own parents independent and living in their own home where they want to be. If you're looking for someone to either supplement the care that your primary physician is giving to your loved one who's 65 or older, or to perhaps become their primary care physician, I really encourage you to call the Agewell Institute at Baptist. Their number is 904-202-4243. Again, that's 904-202-4243.
Are you burdened with a loved one's medical bills and confused about who and how much to pay? Are there medical claims that have been denied? When you work with Claim Medic, they review your bills for accuracy every month and deal directly with your insurance company to make sure you receive every benefit that you pay for and never pay a bill that you don't owe. At Claim Medic, they offer free audits of up to 3 years of past medical bills to identify any past billing errors and recover overpayments you may have made. And their monthly bill review service will ensure that future bills are accurate before you pay. With Claim Medic as your personal medical claim specialist, you can focus on what matters most, the health and comfort of your loved one, and rest easy knowing that their medical bills are managed by experts who care. Ready to start? Call 888-988-2985 to speak with a specialist or visit ClaimMedic.com. That's 888-988-2985. With Claim Medic on your side, you'll never pay a medical bill you don't owe. Have you read the new book, Love Stories and Timeless Tips yet? It's by our own Toula Wooten with Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Toula is a caregiver too, as well as an expert on caregiving. You can get it in paperback or on Kindle at Amazon.com. The book is filled with touching stories of caregivers taking care of their loved ones. Each chapter has helpful ideas that we all can use. I love that Toula included a Toula's tip with each story. Her message to caregivers is clear. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of your loved one. This is a beautiful book for all caregivers to read, whether you're a part-time, full-time, or long-distance caregiver, or someone receiving care. You should get the book today. Just go to Amazon.com. Search for Love Stories and Timeless Tips by Toula Wooten.
George, I got the job. Thanks, I'm so excited. They hired me on the spot right after the interview. It was that book I bought from Amazon, From the Interview to the Paycheck by Fred Haley. The book really taught me something. It helped me to think about what the boss wants. Then it helped me with answers that show that I can do the job. I can tell they were impressed when I introduced myself. I just followed the simple outline from the Interview to the Paycheck book, and I know I won the job with my first 90 days plan the book recommended. They said no one else had ever been so prepared. You should get the book. It's on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle. It's worth it if you want to get hired. Just search for From the Interview to the Paycheck by Fred Haley. Do it now.
And now let's return to Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Once again, here's Toula.
Welcome back, everyone. My guests today, Jamie Buller and Bonnie Bedenbaugh from the Advanced Care Planning Department, and I have been talking about the importance of putting your wishes in writing. But let's start with what's really most important, is having the conversation first, and then putting your wishes in writing. And Community Hospice will give you, at no charge, a facilitator to help you do that. We moved on and started talking a little bit about the series that we're starting next week. And we're going to be spotlighting Dr. Atul Gawande, who wrote this book called Being Mortal that we just alluded to a little bit ago, and was on the Frontline series, or the Frontline show, talking about this book and the importance of people deciding, having discussions and deciding what's important to them should they become ill. So let's talk a little bit more about what they might expect. If someone wanted to come, before we give the dates and times, let's talk about what someone may expect if they came to one of these series. How long will it be? The documentary will be shown, and then what, Bonnie?
Okay. Each event will be about 2 hours. There'll be a short welcome and introduction, and then the viewing of the documentary. And afterward, a panel of experts will be there to answer questions of the audience. And that panel would be consistent of social workers, administrators, doctors, chaplains, and people in the community who have faced these difficult situations as well. So we had 2 last week, actually, that went very well attended, and just remarkable conversations that happened. So we're looking forward to these 5 events.
Talk to me a little bit about the documentary itself. For anybody who's not familiar with Dr. Gawande and his book, Being Mortal, what are some of the things that are going to come out that maybe he'll help people address in his documentary?
Well, I know I can't count the number of times I've seen it now. And we were talking after one of the events this past week about how we hear something new or different every time. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful in that he speaks from a physician's perspective initially and talks about how he knows he did not handle some situations correctly. In fact, he shares with the husband of one patient that he actually lied to that husband because he didn't want to have a sense of failure in not being able to cure the man's wife. So he realized, I think, after taking care of her, that he just was not comfortable in not being able to cure and help. So he decided to talk to other doctors to find out how they do it. What could he learn from them to have a better understanding of how he could better approach patients and family members? So the documentary shows him interviewing some patients and their family members during their illness and death process of dying, and interviewing some other doctors who either do it well or don't necessarily do it well, and they themselves are also learning. And then he transitions to when he found out he was the son of a man who was dying. And so he had this experience in his own family. Mm-hmm. So he shares both from a personal perspective with his own experience and a professional perspective as a physician and healer, and how inadequate the healthcare team can feel when they can't cure. One of his quotes in the documentary is, the 2 things they can't cure are aging and dying. And they have a sense of failure.
And I think that is so hard for so many physicians because they are trained, obviously, to heal and make things better. It's a huge place to be able to come to accept the fact that you can't, but yet then be able to help someone die well.
Right, exactly.
There is a healing involved in dying well on different realms other than the physical body. And and to hear him explain that and then talk about his own personal experience with his father, which was life-changing.
Right.
I think for them it was just really, really touching.
Right. Well, and I think one thing that comes across in the documentary is that physicians tend to not offer as an option to patients and families foregoing non-beneficial treatment.
Right.
And opting for dying well.
Right. Hard for them. So this series is going to be offered 4 or 5 times next week at different venues, some of our hospital partners and others, and it's free and open to the public. If you do not have a living will, an advanced care plan in place, please come. This will be an engaging discussion. Can't say it'll be the easiest thing you ever went to, but it'll be engaging, enlightening, educational, and it will help you. Bonnie, will you tell us where and when some of these documentaries are going to be shown, the panel will be, and the series will happen next week, and then how people register?
I'd be happy to. So on Tuesday, November 1st, it will be at St. Vincent's Healthcare in the Terry Conference Center from 2 to 4. On Wednesday, the 2nd, it'll be at the University of North Florida in the Student Union from 1 to 3. On Wednesday, again, at UF Health from 3:30 to 5 in their Learning Resource Center in the Faculty Clinic Auditorium. Also on Wednesday from 6 to 8 at the Mayo Clinic in the Canada Building, the Ken Auditorium, and at Jacksonville University on Thursday, November 3rd at 6:30. So if you would like to register or want more information about these events, please call us at Honoring Choices Florida, 407-7024.
And you guys will help them make sure they get registered. And even if someone wants to come and they hear this last minute and don't get registered, can they still come?
Absolutely. We'll have plenty of room for them.
Okay. So they can come expecting to hear and see the documentary of Dr. Atul Gawande talking about the importance of planning ahead for your own processes, your own end-of-life experience as it comes, the difficulties that can come with making decisions, the importance of talking about it with your family, and his own perspective, which I agree is so profoundly moving.
Right, it is. And also important for your listeners to know is they will have the opportunity to ask questions of the panelists.
Yeah.
So the goal is to initiate conversation in the community. So these panels of experts will be available to answer their questions as well. And certainly if anyone missed the dates, times, and locations, they are also on the honoringchoicesfl.com website on the events page.
Or you can just call in and someone will get back to you.
Absolutely.
And help you find the right venue to go to. That's 5 different times it's going to be offered next week. You guys are going to be so busy.
It's really enjoyable, though.
But it really is, especially as you see the light bulbs go off in people's heads as they understand the importance of having these discussions, making some tough decisions, and moving forward, and then having that sense of peace.
Sure.
I know it's not always easy, but I know that once you've done it and you've had the discussions with your loved ones and you know everybody knows what you want, you can move forward with peace. We've seen that time after time. Will facilitators be at these series in case people just want to start the conversations or to sign up with a facilitator?
There are people in attendance who have come through the facilitator training. And at the 3 hospital sites, there would be the opportunity for people to let someone know they'd like to meet with a facilitator. At the 2 academic sites, there aren't trained facilitators there, but Bonnie and or I will be there, and we would be happy to talk with anybody about how to make that happen.
And we'll have copies of the Honoring Choices Florida document there, and we can set people up to do that. Bonnie, one more time, would you give us that phone number for Honoring Choices Florida?
Yes, it's 904-407-7024.
For anybody who's interested in coming, I cannot express to you enough how important this is. This is a gift to your loved ones. Please come to one of our series, particularly if you don't have your document in place, if you haven't had conversations with your loved one, if you have a family member or a loved one who is ill. This is just so important to have in place. I love that Community Hospice is doing this. There's no charge for it. We look forward to all of you being there at one of these events next week. Jamie and Bonnie, thank you for being my guests today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Toula's Tips for Caregivers. Blessings, everyone.